Hey there! Welcome back to Cybersphere Chronicles. I'm here today at an active construction site to talk about something that often gets overlooked but is absolutely critical: safety. Working in cable construction is tough, and whether you're dealing with fiber optics, electrical cabling, or heavy machinery, safety should always be your #1 priority. In today's video, we're diving into the best practices for keeping you and your crew safe while working with cables in the field. Before we get into the best practices, let's first acknowledge the risks involved. Cable construction work isn't just physically demanding, it can be downright dangerous. We're talking about risks like electrical shocks, falls from heights, equipment malfunctions, and even exposure to hazardous materials. It's a job that requires constant vigilance and attention to detail. But the good news is, with the right precautions and safety protocols in place, you can minimize those risks and make sure everyone gets home safe at the end of the day. Let's start with the basics. Personal protective equipment, or PPE. Every cable construction worker should be wearing the appropriate gear, no exceptions. Hard hats protect you from falling objects. Safety glasses shield your eyes from debris, and gloves help prevent cuts and burns. And don't forget about high visibility vests, especially if you're working in an area with heavy machinery or traffic. Wearing proper footwear is equally important. You'll need boots with non-slip soles and steel toes to protect your feet from both electrical hazards and falling objects. Trust me, PPE may not always be the most comfortable thing to wear, but it can make the difference between a minor incident and a major injury. Next up is electrical safety. When you're working with live wires or high voltage systems, the risk of electrical shock is real. One of the simplest but most effective precautions is to ensure that all electrical equipment is properly grounded. This reduces the risk of shock and prevents dangerous electrical currents from flowing through your body. Always use insulated tools when working with electrical cables, and never assume a wire is dead just because it's not in use. Always test it first. And of course, make sure that you and your team know how to lock out and tag out electrical systems before performing maintenance or repairs. This prevents anyone from accidentally powering up a system while you're working on it. Cable handling. Lifting and installing the right way. One of the most common injuries in cable construction is related to improper lifting and cable handling. Cables can be incredibly heavy, and if you don't lift them correctly, you could easily strain your back or worse. Here's a tip. When lifting cables or equipment, always bend your knees, keep your back straight, and lift with your legs. It might take a little longer, but it's worth it to avoid injury. When installing cables, make sure you're using the correct equipment for the job. Whether you're running cables underground, through conduits, or across rooftops, you should always be using proper tools like cable pullers, grips, and conduit rods to reduce strain and ensure the job is done safely. Working at heights. Secure yourself first. Now let's talk about working at heights. Whether you're up on a ladder, a scaffold, or even a utility pole, falls are one of the leading causes of injury in this industry. If you're working more than a few feet off the ground, you should always be wearing a safety harness that's securely attached to an anchor point. Remember, it's not enough to just wear the harness. You need to know how to properly use it. Check for any signs of wear or damage before each use, and make sure it's adjusted correctly for your body. Falls can happen in an instant, so take the extra time to secure yourself before starting any task at height. Another important aspect to consider is the weather. Cable construction work often happens outdoors, and that means dealing with the elements. Wet conditions increase the risk of slips and falls, and rain or snow can make electrical work even more dangerous. Wind can also pose a hazard, especially if you're working at heights or handling large equipment. If the weather takes a turn for the worse, don't hesitate to stop work until conditions improve. It's always better to delay the job than to push through unsafe conditions and risk injury. And of course, dress appropriately for the weather. Cold, wet, or extreme heat can lead to its own set of safety issues like hypothermia, heat stroke, or frostbite. One of the most important aspects of safety is communication. If you're working on a large site with multiple teams, it's crucial that everyone knows the game plan. Establish clear lines of communication, whether it's through radios, hand signals, or daily safety briefings. This helps ensure that everyone is on the same page and aware of potential hazards. Make sure your team knows how to report any safety concerns or incidents, no matter how small. Something as minor as a frayed cable or a loose ladder rung can lead to serious accidents if not addressed right away. Even with the best safety practices, emergencies can still happen. That's why every worker on site needs to be trained in basic first aid and emergency protocols. Whether it's a fall, an electrical shock, or an equipment malfunction, knowing how to respond quickly and effectively can save lives. Make sure your team knows where the nearest first aid kit is and that it's fully stocked. Have a clear emergency evacuation plan and conduct regular safety drills so that everyone is prepared in case of an emergency. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that everyone goes home safe. Cable construction is a demanding job, but by following these best practices, you can significantly reduce the risks and keep yourself and your team protected. If you found this video helpful or have any additional safety tips to share, drop a comment below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tech and safety insights from Cybersphere Chronicles. Stay safe out there and see you next time.